Hey, so I have a quote here that I wrote down back in April of this year, and I just kind of I want to record my thoughts on it just as they come, just so I have something to look back on and I don't know, review and see how uh, how my, how things change, essentially. So the quote goes: "A free woman is a woman that chooses her responsibilities." Unfortunately, I did not write the author, which is kind of unfortunate. But I'm sure it was from a podcast that I listened to. Anyways, so a free woman is a woman that chooses her responsibility. A free woman is a woman that chooses her responsibility. That's such a profound statement, but I think it also feels very constricting, depending on what stage of life you're in. With the way that my life has panned out, I've lived. I went to college and I moved back home, and I'm 26 years old now, and I still live with my mother at home, and so. Um, I didn't really achieve the goals that I wanted straight out of college. Oftentimes, I blame that on being burnt out, but I think I get overwhelmed when I look at the bigger picture instead of just taking one step at a time. There's beauty in I don't know if it's spontaneity or there's beauty in ignorance, right? And so I noticed that when I don't have the full picture, yes, it causes anxiety. However, if I know the next step or if I understand the step that I am taking, it relieves me of all of that anxiety and burden because I don't feel like I have to chew much more than I can bite. So a free woman is a woman that chooses her responsibilities. Now, when I moved back home, my whole focal point was I wanted to get this big corporate job. I wanted to be a corporate girly. I knew how I wanted to dress, very conservative dresses. I did like suits, but just like the dress pants and the top and a little bit of jewelry. So a bit dressed down, but not necessarily, if you know what I mean. Um, However, I graduated from college, I came back home, and it was in the midst of COVID 2020. And I was obsessed with investments. I had taken an accounting class my senior year of college, and I absolutely fell in love. And I had already been inquiring about stocks and things of such, but I didn't know the broad spectrum of it. And so, even today, a lot of the knowledge I have, I might have a lot more knowledge than the average person next to me, but there's still so much room to grow because all this knowledge I've acquired was self-taught. I had to go and seek it out myself, and so the resources that I have, it just takes a little bit longer to get to the right resources, right? So I had to filter through a lot of BS, but it took me accepting a lot of BS before coming across actual knowledge that helped me have wisdom with what made sense and what didn't necessarily make sense, at least for me. So I graduated college. I'm obsessed with stocks and ETFs and bonds, and then I figure out that you can invest in treasure bonds. You can buy bonds with the federal government. Um, and so I am like nerding out on all this information. I'm reading whatever I could. I'm watching YouTube videos. I'm watching like YouTube videos from classes, from professors like, let's say the MIT program or Stanford or something from back in 2008. And I'm watching all those lectures to try and gain some sort of understanding or direction on where to go. And so I had created a Robinhood account and I started playing around with investments. I lost some, I won some. I got a little, when it was time to let go, I didn't and I held on. And I got to feel what that felt like. And I a lot of people around me were kind of confused on why I'm doing that. I was encouraging them to invest. But most people did not want to take that risk because there's peace in safety, right? But I was like, F it. I'm in my early 20s. This is the time to make the mistakes so that later on in life, when I'm in my 30s, 40s, 50s, I have made all the mistakes you could possibly think. And by the time I'm in my 30s, 40s, 50s, I can gradually become a more wise investor, an intentional investor, but also with a little bit of risk and spontaneity there. I can become an angel investor from the prosperity I reap from those investments that I made, right? And so that was my mindset after college. And so I'm geeking out on all this investments, and then I'm also wanting to work in the corporate world. And I figured, yay me! I did 4 years in college. I took I took one semester off, and I still graduated within 4 years. That's freaking phenomenal. And so I thought I'm freaking wonderful. I'm gonna get hired, no doubts, right? And I don't get any callbacks from these big corporate jobs. I'm not getting any interviews. And at that time, I was working at Winco Foods. Now, I'm in my mind, this is just a transitional job. I'm working here to make the income so that I can afford to buy the clothes I need for the environment I'm going to. I can afford to have the sort of transportation I need for that environment to get to those environments. And I don't even know if I was thinking this then, but I guess I'm thinking it now. I wanted to refine my skills, my people skills, so that I can succeed within the work environment, but also with the clientele base that was coming in. So that was my mindset. And then one night I go out and I get drugged. I end up getting sexually assaulted, and that, whoo, it did not change the trajectory that I wanted my life to go into, but it definitely it flipped my world upside down. I'm so glad for the family that I have, because without them, I don't know if I would have experienced the type of healing I did in the short amount of time that it took. Within that experience, I went to a therapist. I was there for one day. She kind of scared me because she seemed very eager to listen to my pain and my trauma, and I was like, I feel like with a therapist, you're also building a relationship, just like any other relationship, and you have to build trust, right? And I didn't want to feel like I was a project or excited. I don't know. I just didn't like the feeling that it brought up, and so I never showed up again. But I did start going to the gym again. I started going to the gym. I lost the weight I had gained from college, because my senior year, I was taking 7 classes and I was still working too. And so all that stress, I ended up losing a chunk of hair, like right here. I gained, I think, 20 pounds or maybe 15 pounds. And I think that was the most amount of weight I had ever gained in a short period of time. But I wasn't necessarily concerned. I shaved my head because I had gone bald. I wasn't really concerned about the weight because I was focused. My goal was I want to graduate. And so I did just that. So that whole experience happened. My world flipped upside down. And then I'm going through some other personal things, and it felt like wait, right? And so I guess going back to the quote, a free woman is a woman that chooses her responsibilities. Now that I'm at this stage of my life, before I went through the transformative healing that I went through a couple of months ago, if not a year now, I would look down upon myself because I had set all these goals and dreams for myself, and yet I hadn't achieved any of them. And it's because I wanted it to look a certain way. I wanted my blessing to be packaged in a certain manner, and it wasn't. And when life threw curveballs at me, and instead of crying out with thanksgiving and gratitude, with tears in my eyes, I cried, "Woe me, why me?" And I guess trigger warning. It led me to a terrible mental space. Like, I did not want to be here anymore. I could not understand what I did in order to attract those types of situations into my life, such traumatic situations. I could not. Yeah. So a free woman is a woman that chooses her responsibilities. Now, like I said, before I went through that transformative healing, I would look down upon myself because I hadn't achieved any of the goals that I wanted to achieve. My life did not look the way I wanted it to look. My income was not looking the way I wanted it to look. What I had in mind is that I'm going to stay home, I'm going to work this great corporate job, and I'm going to save my money. I'm going to invest into the stock market, and then beyond that point, I want to save as much money as I can so that by 27 years old, I can purchase my first home and rent that, and then continue staying in my mother's house and rent that home out in order to have other forms of income coming in. I just wanted to build the foundations of my wealth in my youth or in my 20s, so that I can enjoy them in my 30s, so that I can enjoy them when I'm ready to have children, and my children can reap the benefits of what I sowed. And so that just wasn't working out. And so I really shamed myself, and I oftentimes blamed myself for the things that happened. I blamed myself for the responsibilities that were handed to me. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but I think it gets a little tricky when it feels like you're putting all that blame on you as if you are the sole commander of your life. And so, it was tough. And from 2020 up until 2023, I kept going through more and more situations that were beyond traumatic, and that landed me in my room, curled up in fetal position in the darkness of the basement, just crying for hours on end, trying to distract myself with social media, trying to distract myself with quick pleasures, fixes that were doing me more harm than good, and I could instantly feel it. And so for months, I think 3-4 months, I was like in the darkness of this one room we have downstairs in the basement, and it's literally so dark, and I would lay on the floor for hours, and I think sometimes I would cover myself in a blanket, and I remember laying in this fetal position on my left side and just crying and crying and crying and crying. And then it took my sister kind of helping me get out of that situation a little bit. She would invite me to come pick up her daughter from school with her, or to go run errands with her. And so I would just like, yeah, yeah. And gosh, I don't know what would have happened without those first few starting points. And so I would go with her, and then I would come back and end up in that same fetal position, crying all night and all day. And then it took a couple of more months of that for me to be in those circumstances until, and I blamed God a lot. I blamed God. Oh my God, I blamed God. I cried out to him. But the thing is, even though I wanted to hate him, I couldn't hate him. I cried out for the pain I was experiencing, and like why it had to be me. But I never, oh wow. But I never really, I think I wanted not to believe in God. I wanted to, I don't know. but it just wasn't happening, and I'm so grateful for that. And so slowly, after a couple of more months and weeks, I began to read the Bible, but it would be like, sometimes I would read one sentence, sometimes I would read half a verse, and then I'd go back to crying. Or I'd listen to worship music, and then I'd go back to crying. And I kept doing that until I started writing in my planner. Christine had handed me a planner, and I would start writing in my planner, I'm gonna wake up at 7 a.m., read my Bible, do a workout, and then like go to bed. Or like read my Bible, do a workout, read a book, and then like, yeah. And I wrote that for like, I would write it on Sunday for the prior week, and I would write my plans down and any things that I needed, any responsibilities I needed to fulfill. And so I started writing those down, but the only thing I could complete half the times was maybe one week I'd wake up at 7 a.m. The next week, maybe I'd read the Bible. And then one day I would just wake up at 7 a.m., read the Bible, work out, read a book, and do like tens and thousands of things before 10 a.m. And I was like, whoa, I did not know I had this much time and I was this capable. And so it was kind of a yo-yo from there of just writing my planner out for the week, and then just checking it off, checking that, it just did wonders for me. And I went through all of that in order to come out of that experience. And it still lingered on. I really did, but it wasn't as harsh as me laying in the darkness of my room for hours on end. So, yeah. And so when it comes to, as powerful as I find this quote, a free woman is a woman that chooses her responsibilities, I think sometimes we lose sight within the storm of our life, and we think that because of the weight that's being put on our backs, that's like literally pushing us down to the ground, and it feels like I can't get up. It feels like I can't even like, I'm like laying on the floor, and the weight, it's still like I'm laying with my belly down back, and like the weight is still so heavy, and I want to get up and I just can't. Like the thought of even lifting my hand to be able to push myself up is just so difficult. And so I think sometimes the storm really clouds our sight, and it clouds our judgment. But the reality is, even within the storm, you have the freedom to choose your responsibilities. You choose responsibility, right? Responsibility. You choose your responsibility to the storm. You choose your responsibility to your healing. You choose your responsibility to yourself, to how you conquer, and things of that manner.